Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So if you haven't heard about Cancer Alley, prepare to be pissed off all goddamn day, because I have been for days. Cancer Alley is what they call an 85-mile stretch of land that runs along the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and it contains 7 of the top 10 most polluted census tracts in the entire country, in all of the United States. So according to the Environmental Protection Agency, the cancer risk in these tracts is 95% higher than the national average because of the toxins spewed from the nearly 150 oil refineries and plastics and chemical facilities that litter that area. And they're owned by the likes of Dow and ExxonMobil, companies we all know of. These toxins include things like benzene, chromium, chloroprene, polycyclic compounds, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They're literally killing the residents in this area. And the census data shows that half of the population in this area is made up of African Americans. In addition, almost 17% of the residents in that area have an income that falls below the poverty line. So it's not like they can just pick up and move. They don't have the money to move. They can't afford to live anywhere else. So this story, what I'm going to share with you, is a perfect example of why I continue to urge my liberal friends to start voting based on policy rather than personality or just the letter behind someone's name. It's also the reason why I argue that the number one thing we need to do is to get money out of politics. It's why that HR 1 bill that's now SR 1 that is now moved to the Senate absolutely, positively, unequivocally must pass. That bill contains various guidelines and legislation that will prevent these types of things or will make these jobs less appealing to greedy people, I should say. And it's why we have to, absolutely have to, why the Democrats have to abolish the filibuster. Because unless they abolish the filibuster, HR 1 is not going to get through, and establishment Democrats are just going to blame the Republicans, even though some of them don't want it to pass either. Now, the reason I say all of this is because for the past decade, Cancer Alley and the surrounding area has been represented, if you can even call it that, by a corporate-owned Democrat named Cedric Richmond. Richmond has spent his time in Congress voting with the Republicans to increase petroleum extraction and to reduce regulations that would help prevent his constituents from contracting these deadly diseases. So here's just a few examples of what he's done. According to experts, Richmond has backed legislation that prevents the review of the environmental impact of liquefied natural gas infrastructure. In 2015, he voted for the Keystone XL pipeline. Then in 2019, Richmond voted in the affirmative to allow oil companies to use seismic airgun blasts along the Atlantic coast for oil exploration. And there's a simple reason why. He is bought and paid for by these same companies who are pumping this poison into the air in his district. In fact, in 2019, Richmond received over $128,000 from chemical companies and nearly $300,000 from oil and gas companies. Out of the entire Democratic caucus in the House, he is one of the largest recipients of oil, gas, and chemical company donations. He has received more in donations from these industries than congresspeople who have been in office far longer than he has. And it clearly is affecting how he does or doesn't do his job, I should say, because 2 area residents, 2 people who live in this Cancer Alley area, they attempted to meet with him several years ago. They wanted to discuss the pollution and they wanted to ask for his help. They talked to the Guardian newspaper and they said that he sat with them for all of 2 minutes. In those 2 minutes, he lied to them about what actions his office had taken to help with this issue. And then he just urged them to vote Donald Trump out of office in 2020, and he got up and left. And he just left them sitting there with an aide. One of the two constituents told the Guardian reporter, quote, "Looking at his face, it didn't really seem like he was interested. It was like he was trying to brush us off." Robert Taylor is the name of one of those two residents who met with him and was blown off by Richmond. Taylor has now lost his mother, his sister, and multiple nephews to cancer. His wife currently has cancer, and his daughter has a rare intestinal disease that's linked to that chemical I mentioned called chloroprene. The other person who met with Richmond is Mary Hampton. Hampton has lost her brother, sister-in-law, and daughter-in-law all to cancer, all of which she blames on these local petrochemical plants and their pollution. And when the Guardian reached out to the EPA to inquire about what, if any, efforts Richmond has taken to help his constituents, they were told that Richmond's office has sent zero correspondence to the EPA asking for their assistance to quell this pollution. Then the Guardian reviewed Richmond's entire record. They went back and reviewed everything he's done and everything he has said over the last 10 years that he's been in office. They confirmed that he has not one single time mentioned air pollution, whether it be in his district or whether he was on the floor of the House. He's never spoken on the matter publicly in any way, shape, or form. This guy literally doesn't give a shit. A woman named Ann Rolfs is the executive director for an environmental justice organization in that area. And in regard to Richmond, she said, quote, "I've been working in his district every year that he's been a congressman, and I've never seen his face or any of his staff members in their communities working on these issues. It's simply not on their radar." In 2018 alone, Richmond failed to show up to vote on 15 out of 35 environmental related bills. And he refuses to explain why. So he missed almost half of the votes on environmental issues, even though it is the number one issue in his district. Joe Biden has now tapped Richmond to be a senior advisor to him. He's now working in the White House with Joe Biden. He is now the director of the White House Office of Public Engagement. And if that ain't ironic and disturbing, I don't know what is. Seriously, so the guy who couldn't be bothered to help the very people who put him in office and who kept him there for a decade is now in charge of public engagement. Oh my God. For a moment, it seemed, well, at least we're going to get him out of this district, right? At least this area of Louisiana has a chance at new leadership and someone who might actually give a damn about something other than his or her bank account. However, the special election was held this past Saturday, and out of 15 candidates vying for Richmond's seat, no one received over 50% of the vote. So what that means is that the two top candidates, the two who received the most votes on Saturday, they go head to head in a runoff that's scheduled now for April 24th. They are two Democratic state senators. So they're state senators from Louisiana named Troy Carter and Karen Peterson. The problem, and why I've now kind of lost hope again that anything is going to be done about this, is that these two don't appear to be a whole hell of a lot better than Richmond, because they both accept money from big oil and gas, or at least they have in the past. And the candidate who received the highest number of votes on Saturday was Troy Carter. He was actually endorsed by Richmond. So that should tell all of us what we need to know about who he is and what he stands for. And if that alone doesn't do it for you, a comment he made to a news outlet, it just speaks volumes. Carter said that Richmond endorsed him because he has a track record of passing bipartisan legislation in the state, and that, quote, in congressional halls, relationships matter. So that's code for I'm going to continue to vote in a bipartisan manner when it lines my pockets and campaign coffers, and I'm going to continue to throw my constituents under the cancer bus for power and money, just as Cedric Richmond did. But even if Carter doesn't win, Peterson doesn't appear to be much better. She appears to be all about identity politics and a faux-gressive, as I call them, rather than a progressive. She said, quote, "It's time that Louisiana sent an African-American woman to Congress." So here's the deal. I'm all for representation. I would love to see more women of color in positions of power in this country if they aren't beholden to big money interests. Why is that the first thing that she says? Why didn't she say, it's time we put someone in that position who will actually stop all of these companies from polluting our air and our land and our water so that my constituents don't die of cancer? Whether you're a man, a woman, a white person, a black person, I don't give a damn. If you're not going to do what's right, if you're not going to help the people that help to put you in office, what's the use? What's the difference in what color or what gender you are? There are women of color who are complete sellouts and who would take our country back to the Stone Ages if given the chance. Candace Owens is a perfect example. She's a Black woman who I would never want in control of anything. One obvious sign that Peterson is all about the establishment is the fact that she was endorsed by another faux-gressive, who you probably heard of, Stacey Abrams. Now, admittedly, Abrams did an amazing job turning out voters in Georgia, but she also stumped for corporate shill and architect of the stop and frisk policy in New York, Mike Bloomberg. So candidate Gary Chambers is who Louisiana voters should have rallied behind. That's who should have won. Unfortunately, he came in third out of all of these 15 candidates. So he missed it by a very small amount. So hopefully Chambers or someone like him will run again in 2 years. And hopefully a local group will take the next 24 months to educate their voters on what's really happening to them and who and what is to blame. Because yes, it is the polluters, but it's also their representation. It's also the fact that they keep voting for people who may have a great smile and who may be really nice to them, but doesn't actually give a damn about the death of them or their loved ones. So again, I'm going to keep harping on this until I'm blue in the face, until I drop dead. Policy, not personality. If there's only a regressive Republican running against a Democrat, I get it. That's your only choice. Okay. Personally, I would rather sit it out. I would rather let the establishment know that's not going to fly with me. You better put somebody else up next time. But I get it. If you are in a swing state and you feel that is your only choice, I understand. But you need to look at people's policies. Cedric Richmond, he is exhibit A of why not every Democrat is a good person who should be elected. So I'll keep you posted. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.